with school holidays here, I have promised a friend that I will teach her how to make socks. So I've decided that I'm going to take you guys along for the ride and do a bit of a series in some sock skills. So the first kind of sock we're going to be working on is a toe down sock. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do a long tail cast on, join in the round, work with the magic loop, and then at the end, I'm going to show you how I do a seamless graft, also known as a Kitchener stitch. Which is how you finish off the toe on a sock like this, and it's also helpful for an afterthought heel. So I am using what is my favorite needle, which is a Knit Pro Mindful collection, because the cable is just so nice to work with compared with a plastic cable. So my yarn here, I'm just going to move the ball out of the way so you can see it a little bit. So I've got the long end here, so I'm going to kind of do it like that, and then I'm going to, in that gap there, I'm going to slip my finger and my thumb like that so that the loose bit comes down over my thumb there, and I'm going to grab it like that. And so this is called a long tail cast on. And so then to start with, I'm going to press down on this bit between my fingers. I'm going to press down and twist under like that, under this thumb here. So I'm coming up in there, up, over to this, and from the right hand side, I'm going to go behind, and I'm going to slip that thumb loop over there and pull the thumb strip there, and that's going to give me 2 stitches. And now we're going to repeat that again. So we're just going to come over and from the front go up into that gap. So up into that gap, right behind, back through, and then pull that thumb. So under, through the middle, right and behind, back in through the loop, and pull firm. Like that. So under through the gap, right and behind, through the loop, pull firm. Now I am just going to do a short cast on, so hopefully you can see that as I'm working nice and slowly. Through the gap, round behind, pulling loop. So I'm going to just cast on, say, 20 stitches just to demonstrate for this instance. So that first loop does count. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So I'm just going to do another 10 stitches. And so you can see I'm holding this finger back to create the tension. 12, 13, 14. And you can see I'm holding down here as well, holding tension. So you can see how nice and firm. So I've got that loose, and you can see that's nice and firm. So again, up through the hole, right and round the back, and back through the loop. 14, 15. Sorry, my habit is to put my finger there to guide it, so I'm just trying to move that out of the way. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and then I'm going to cast on 1 extra stitch to help me join in the round, so 21. And so that's my long tail cast on done. So now what we need to do is to create the magic loop. So we need to count our 10 stitches, which is our halfway mark. 1, 10. So I'm just going to slide these back down onto the cable. So this can be a little bit fiddly here. So I'm just going to basically bend the cable in half between those stitches I just counted, and then I'm just going to pull that cable out like that. So I'm going to push this one back up because I need to get this stitch over here to join in the round. So I'm making sure my stitches aren't twisted. You need them to be all level. So I'm just going to push those back down just to make it a bit easier. So I'm just going to hold those firm because this is a stitch that I've just worked. Can be a little bit tricky. So pulling that in through there and slipping that stitch off. I'm just going to hold those spare bits there. And then I'm going to swap. So I'm going to pull this needle out onto the cable. So you can see they're both on the cable now. And then I'm going to push this working up onto my cable here, pull those firm again, double check that they're not twisted. Okay, then I'm going to bring this out even more. I'm going to knit these first 2 stitches. You can see that that's come really loose, so I'm just going to knit that to start with, and then I can pull it tight. So round, just knit the 2 together like that, and then slide it back on that needle, and then, so you can see that's really loose there. So I'm just going to pull the yarn like that, and so you can see there now, it's still a little bit, but once we've done the first round of knitting, we can pull that again and tighten that up, and then when we weave in the ends, that'll close it all up. And so now we can add a stitch marker and we can start knitting. So to magic loop, we're just basically sliding. So from the cable onto the needle. Sometimes they can be a little bit tricky if they get a bit firm, and there can sometimes be a bit of a bump from the, as you can see, the cable's quite skinny, and so sometimes it can be a bit fiddly. So we'll pull that one up and we'll slide that back onto the cable. So it's like that. So we've got a loop out there, we've got a loop out here, and then it's just a matter of knitting around. So I'll just knit across that first half so you can see what I mean. So you can see I'm pulling that nice and firm because that was getting loose again. So I'm going to pull that nice and firm. So now that I've done that, I'm turning it. The ones that were on the cable, I'm sliding up onto the needle. And sometimes I kind of do it intermittently. So the back needle I'm sliding out and then continuing to slide this onto the needle. So just mind your tension as you are doing it, because you can see that that's pulling quite a lot. And so again, you want to kind of pull that nice and firmly, especially for that first stitch. And it does take practice to get that tension across that gap. So again, we're going to turn it around. I'm going to slide that cable in. So this is just my preference of how I do it. I normally get it up to the needle, then slide that other needle out, just so I don't have to worry about those dropping off. And then I can, because sometimes that can be a bit fiddly. And if I'm, wriggling it to get these on, sometimes they can drop off there. I've been caught before. So the order you do it in doesn't particularly matter. It's just what you find more comfortable. And so again, pulling it nice and firm for that first stitch. So you can see I've got 2 loops of cable. One loop out this way, one loop out that way. So you can see there, so again, I'm turning, increase that loop there, pull that up, pull that back, push that in. So you can see, because I did pull that really firm there, that's making this one really tight too. So sometimes that can be just a little bit fiddly to get on there. And off I go again. And so then you'll see when I'm ready to knit here. So this is my working needle, my working yarns out there. And so I'll start knitting across there. And so you can see I've got a loop out here and a loop out there. And so that's how we cast on, join in the round, do it like that, and keep going around and around. And then we'll get to the end and we'll pretend like I finished this sock in the space of a video, and I'll show you how to do a seamless grafting stitch to join your toe or your heel, depending on what your pattern is calling for. So then, of course, at the opposite end of casting on is binding off. So I'm going to do a grafting stitch. So I've done an afterthought heel here, which is the same as this one over here. I just need to graft that now, which is the same process I would do for the toe of a top-down sock, which is my current knit. So here is my other one. This was a sock snake. Finish the second one. I've used up most of my yarn. That's all that I've got left. This is left over from Christmas 2023, and I think I've just about got the best of it. So I'm just going to cut a nice long piece. I'm sure there's like a technical way to measure how much I need, but yeah, I kind of just go about as long as I think and then add some extra. So I'm just going to thread just a darning needle. So to do a grafting stitch, I'm going to start on the purple side, which is my first half. So you can see there, you can see the jogs as I've changed rows. So that's going to be the back of my sock, which is why the heel is here. So you can see the jogs there. We're going to do setup first. So, okay, I'll zoom in a bit. There we go. So to do our first 2 setup stitches, we're going to work on the front stitch and we're going to go through it as if to purl, and then we're going to leave it on the needle. And then we're going to go through the back stitch on the back needle as if to knit, and also leave it on the needle. So that's our 2 setup stitches. And then we're just going to do a simple rhythm of 4 stitches. So we're going to go knit through the front stitch and pull it off, and then purl through the front stitch and leave it on, and then we're going to purl the back stitch and bring it off, pull that tight, and then knit that back stitch and leave it on. And so it's just going to be that same 4 stitches every time. So knit the front and off, so knit, off, purl on, purl off, just make sure that one didn't jump off, purl off, knit on. So we're alternating the knit and the purl, and then we're doing also alternating on and off. So we're doing an off stitch, which I just went to do the wrong way. So we're going to do knit, and it comes off, and then we're going to do the next stitch on the same side to keep it on, and then we're going to go to the back. So the stitch we had at the front, we're going to do at the back and take it off. So then the same one from the front we do at the back, but the back one comes off, and then I'm going to knit and leave it on, and then the same stitch we did at the back we'll do at the front, and off it comes. So knit and off, then purl. So we did a knit off, so then it's a purl on, and we go to the back, same stitch, opposite action, so purl off. Normally if I'm doing this by myself, it's a little bit smoother and I kind of pick the stitch off as I'm putting my needle through, but I'm just trying to do it nice and slowly so that you can see what we're doing. So I've just done a knit there and left on. So I'm going to do a knit and off. So you can see as I'm pulling the yarn through, that one jumped off. And so then I can do a purl, try not to stab myself, and leave that one on. Purl, and off. Right. And so I'll speed it up now and get it done. And then I've just obviously made a mistake somewhere, so I'm just going to cheat, weave them through there, and then I have a nice seamless finish there on the heel of my sock. So it's ready. I can just weave that end in now, and then they are ready for blocking, which I'm super excited about. I knitted these in August last year at a scout camp, and I am super excited to finally have them done. I've just got to weave in these ends and they'll be ready to wear for this winter. So these are going to be my hiking socks, nice and long, as you can see. And I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'm doing some of the important parts of sock making.